If I told you that changing your life had actually nothing to do with outside circumstances, I'm sure you're going to be like, how does that work? And I'm saying that because I used to think that too. I used to think that in order to change my life, I needed to change outside things, like whether it be my job or my relationship or where I lived. I always felt like in order to be happy, if I wasn't happy, I needed to change those things. But I'm going to show you in this video how is if you don't change, your glass is always going to feel half empty. Your life is always going to feel half empty. And so this video is for you if you always keep waiting for something external to change in order to feel happy. I'm going to share some really easy and free tips that you can do that can change your life and the way you feel about your life without anything changing. And the best thing about it is that these tips that I'm going to share start changing everything. Because once you start seeing that the glass is actually half full, your life is actually half full, the glass and your life start overflowing. Things just kind of start multiplying. And I'm saying this firsthand. I've actually witnessed this firsthand, and I used to not believe it. So that's why I want to share this, because it's so simple, but it does take your work. So let's dive in. So for this video, I really want to use the example that everybody's heard about the glass half full and half empty. Because objectively, actually, the glass is just half. It's not half full or half empty. But the way we actually feel about the glass changes a lot. So when we do see the glass half empty, we'll feel more lack and we'll feel kind of like there's something missing. And we're focusing also on what we don't have. But if you see it half full, you actually have a different feeling. But again, objectively, the glass is just half. And I feel like that about my life. Sometimes I remember being like, well, I want to see it half full. And I was always thinking that the only way to get myself to see a glass half full is by filling it with water. So external circumstances. And how would I fill my glass? Well, sometimes I'd think, okay, my glass is half full because my relationship isn't doing well, or my glass isn't half full because I don't like my job, or my glass is half full because I don't like where I live. And I tried changing all those things. I've broken up with boyfriends before. I've changed jobs. I've changed cities. At the beginning, sure, the glass feels half full again, or even more full. But then eventually the half feeling came back. And so I just realized that it wasn't actually changing these things. It was going to actually make me feel happier, and that I really needed to change something on the inside. So I kind of made it a quest to go out and be like, okay, I want to rewire my brain. I want to start seeing the glass half full, because each time I change things, it doesn't change. I need to start changing how I feel about the glass, how I feel about my life. And so I kind of went on quests and read all these books and watched all these podcasts and videos. And I'm going to share the 3 things that I think actually made the most important impact in my life for changing the way I see it. So the first tool that you can do every day is practice gratitude. And I know you're probably thinking, but I want to change my life. How can I change? How can I be grateful for things when a lot of things aren't going well? And I really sympathize with that, because about 2 years ago, I was going through a really, really tough time. And I felt like everything I needed in order to change my life, I felt like I needed to change everything outside of my life. But the thing is, when you start practicing gratitude, it really is something, it's like a muscle, and you build over time. And what's interesting though, is that it's such a small practice. It's so easy. And yet I find, to me, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do. How does it work? It's called a gratitude journal or a gratitude texting with friends. And the idea is that at the end of every day, you write down or say out loud 3 things that you were really grateful for. And believe me, I know that when I first started this, I think I started 3 different times before it actually stuck. It seems silly sometimes. And also it's hard sometimes. Let's say when you're going through a really, really bad time, finding 3 things can be really difficult. But the important thing is that you find the 3 things and then you really feel them. And so when you're going through a really hard time, it can be really simple things. It can be the taste of your coffee. It can be the feel of a shower on your body. And it can be getting back in bed at the end of the day and being like, okay, thankfully it's the end of the day. So it doesn't actually have to be big things. The thing though is that you can't just write them down. It's not just about naming them. It's actually about kind of feeling them, feeling that feeling of gratitude. What does it feel like when you're grateful? And then to lean into that. Actually, Joe Dispenza talks about the fact that gratitude is like the epiphany of receivership. If you want to get more things in your life and change things, you have to start by being grateful. And so it's about just noticing the small things in your life that are actually going well. And it's interesting because what I found when I started doing it is that it actually did start to change the way actually a lot of my life started to feel, because throughout the day I'd be like, is this one of my three things? And so I just started noticing things that were actually kind of pleasant. And that helped me get out of this kind of rut where I was just seeing nothing good in my life. The fact that I had to find three things throughout the day actually made me notice more things throughout the day. And then as a result, it's kind of like what I was saying, is that once you start it, the snowball effect, and you start noticing really like tons and tons of things, and you just start seeing that there's actually a lot to be grateful for. And again, they're really small things. I realize I get really joyful now for just like, for example, the way the sun will feel on my skin, or like a smell in the street, like a flower. You realize that actually feeling bountiful and grateful in your life are from really, really small things. So the second tool that's very useful is about actually practicing radical acceptance now. And I know that that can sound really funny, because it's almost like, it's like, but I want to change my life. So how can I actually be grateful now? Or how can I actually be okay with it now? And I've actually heard a lot of times people would say, if you want to change jobs, love the job that you have. If you want to change your relationship, love the relationship that you have. And to me, it always sounded so weird and kind of like, how can you do that, right? Like, if you're in a relationship that's making you miserable, how can you actually start focusing on the good things? But actually, recently, I actually tried that firsthand, and I was so impressed to see how it changed. So I was actually going through a kind of a difficult place with my partner, and I really got to the place where I was thinking, okay, I think I'm really not happy in this relationship anymore, and I want to change. But we were going through some things that we couldn't really change. We couldn't really separate at the moment. So I was like, okay, instead of separating, I'm going to do some of the practices I heard about, well, if you want a different relationship, start loving the relationship that you had. And so I started doing that. I started focusing on the relationship with my partner. I started focusing on the things that were going well. And of course there was like, I mean, maybe you're in a different circumstance. And of course, if you're in an abusive partnership, that is a different circumstances. But in my case, it was small things. And I started focusing on the things that were going well instead of focusing on the things that weren't going well. And as they say, where your attention goes is what grows, and where you're not focusing on will kind of like dissipate. And this one is something that I followed a bit blindly, because really at the beginning I was like, I want out, this isn't working, but I followed it blindly. And so every day I would focus on the things that were going well, and I'd try to figure out how I could actually be happy with the things that I had. And what's really interesting is that actually the effect that it had was like very quickly. I was not expecting the results to come so fast, but they did. And what's interesting about it is it's almost like also the fact that I was then concentrating on the good things, also perhaps that made my partner feel safer too in the relationship, and not feel as if I was just always angry at him. And so I feel like it also loosened up, and he actually became nicer too. And so it was almost this prosperous circle, but I couldn't get over how quickly it changed. And in a way, it was almost like I had to just like blindly follow the rule until it worked. And that is sometimes something that we don't do, especially in the spiritual world, is like it's almost like we're waiting for the proof first. I'll do this if I have proof. But it's almost the opposite. It's almost like you have to take this leap of faith of like, okay, I'm going to try this, even if I don't believe it, even if I don't really trust it, even if I don't know how it's going to work. And then you see if it works. Of course, sometimes we follow things and it doesn't always work, but this one is pretty powerful. And I think it can go in so many different ways, like also the people at your work. Maybe you have a colleague that's really complicated, or you really don't like your job. But if you start focusing on the things that are going well, if you focus on your colleague, maybe there is one little thing that she does well. The funny thing is, when you start changing the relationship that you have towards this person, she's going to change, or he's going to change, in the sense that like your colleague might actually change and start being nicer, and it's going to actually be even easier to see the good things. It's almost like the gratitude, but in like the gratitude of like focusing on the good things in your life or wherever, by noting three things a day. It's a similar thing, but it's a little bit different, because you're concentrating really on loving what is already here and focusing on that. The third tool is about basically trusting and consistency. So what I said before, it's almost like trusting before you know if it's going to work or not. Trusting, but we do that, like, for example, when we go to the gym. We go to the gym and we know that we might not lose weight or get fit right away, right? But we still go. And it's the same thing here. Sometimes you have to kind of like trust that, like, by doing this, it's going to work before you can actually get the results. And I feel like that is a really important here. It's trusting that it will work before it happens, and knowing that it might not show up right away, but to continue doing it. Because again, it's like going to the gym. If you practice gratitude, or you concentrate on the good things in your relationship or your job or your city or whatever you're wanting to change, and you just do it one day, the results aren't going to be there. You really do have to put in the work, and it does have to be consistent. And again, in my example, for example, it's been about a year now that things with my partner are so great. And I would never have believed this. Honestly, a year ago, if you had told me, I would have been like, no, I don't think so. This isn't going to work. But it's just, it's about putting in the work. And I did put in the work. It's not something like, unfortunately, it's not one of those quick fixes where it's just like, do this and tomorrow it's going to be perfect. No, you do have to put in the work, but the results and what you can expect from it are amazing and totally worth the effort. So to end this video, as you know, I love tarot. And so I wanted to pick a card on a message of love from your higher self. Wow, we got Judgment. That is so amazing. That's such a beautiful card to end, because Judgment is about actually letting go of the past. It's about forgiving and moving on. And I think that's exactly what we are doing when we actually start to see the glass half full. We are letting go of our old way of doing, and we're moving on. And we're also coming out of this darkness and knowing that we can do that, it's a choice to rise above that and to let go of this stuff. And also to stop concentrating on that, and to know that also to forgive ourselves, though, as we do that, to forgive ourselves when we're not perfect, and that when we do see the negative things, but also to like keep rising up, and to know that you can do this, that you are actually capable of taking that step of rising above the darkness, of concentrating on the lighter side of life, the lighter side of that cup that is half full or half empty, that's half. But it's up to you to concentrate on which side you actually want to focus on, and that it is a choice, actually. So on that, I'm wishing you lots of love and lots of laughter as you learn to see the glass half full. Remember, I thought I couldn't do it. I thought that all these other things only work for other people, but I promise you I'm not that special. And I know that you can do it too. It does take a choice, though. It does take you actually having to make the choice and commit to going up towards the light. And it takes the fact that you do have to put in the hard work, but I know that you can. And also to know that the results are so worth it, because once you start seeing the glass half full, it starts to actually bubble up and to get full and to bubble over. It's like you're changing your vibration and you're starting to attract even more better things. And I really can't get over the way that my life has actually radically changed in the last year, from being in a place where I just felt like I needed to change a lot of things, to feeling so much happier. And things, yes, are changing though. There are little things in my life that are changing, but generally, as I'm getting there, I'm also happier. And it is so exciting. And I know that you can do it too. It just does take a little bit of effort and a little bit of consistency. Please leave in the comments any remarks. And if you want to show me your progress, I'd love to follow that. I'm sending you so much love and laughter. I'll see you next video. Thanks so much for watching.